My name is Father Daryl Winkler. I'm the pastor of St. Basil's Parish here in Ottawa, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you tonight to this multi-faith celebration of World Water Day. Beginning 24 years ago today, World Water Day is an annual United Nations Observance Day held on March the 22nd. The day highlights the importance of fresh water. The intention is to inspire people around the world to learn more about water-related issues and to take action to make a difference. Tonight's event ties in with the St. Basil's Parish's continued efforts to foster awareness about the environment, ecology, and all of creation. At the same time, we want to put into practice the insights about the planet, our common home, found in Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si. We do this during the particularly reflective and holy season of Lent. We are thankful for the participation this evening of representatives from other faith traditions who will share their own rich perspectives and traditions concerning creation and particularly water. Let us take this moment to pause before continuing in order to acknowledge with gratitude and respect that we gather here on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin First Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. We honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory, and we uphold and uplift the voice and values of our host nation. Now I would like to turn this over to member of St. Basil's Parish, Bob Cherney, the main organizer of tonight's event.
Thank you very much, Father Daryl. And please, while I'm speaking, you make sure that you admit other people, because now
yes,
I'll be concentrating.
I will.
Okay.
I will. Thank you.
As a first order of business, on behalf of everyone online now, happy birthday.
Thank you.
To Father Daryl.
Yes.
You already have how many? About 75 people from all over North America, I'm sure, perhaps even further afield, joining in this large, diverse party group. And what an interesting and deeply important birthday program we have in store for you. This program was conceived and arranged by a handful of lay people who are members of the Laudato Si Water Action Group. Several such groups began to form 3 years ago, drawing members from various parishes in our region during the 5th anniversary of the encyclical that Father mentioned. Our Water Action Group aims to increase awareness of water issues within the overall climate crisis. Today is our second World Water Day program to do this. Moreover, agreeing with the emphasis placed by Pope Francis on dialogue and collaboration, including among different faith and spiritual perspectives, we chose to also make this an appreciative meeting of different spiritualities. Note what he says in section 63 of the encyclical. You can follow on your screen. Given the complexity of the ecological crisis and its multiple causes, we need to realize that the solutions will not emerge from just one way of interpreting and transforming reality. Respect must also be shown for the various cultural riches of different peoples, their art and poetry, their interior life and spirituality. If we are truly concerned to develop an ecology capable of remedying the damage we have done, no branch of the sciences and no form of wisdom can be left out, and that includes religion and the language particular to it. So that is the sort of dominant perspective. Now here is our program. Next slide, please. After my introduction, we will hear from 6 speakers. I will introduce them individually at their turn. The other planners and I used our personal contacts and educated guesses to find these 6 lay people and ordained ministers. They are not official assigned representatives of institutions. Rather, they are persons whom we approached and who said yes to our request. About the order, Donna asked to speak on Indigenous spirituality last, and the others were fine with any order, so I drew names randomly. So there's no kind of secret within the order. After the speaker's remarks, they will respond to your questions. Please write your questions at any time in the chat box. It's better to write them when you think of them. Don't try and keep them for later. Make them actual questions, not commentaries. And keep them short, please. At the right moment, Kevin will pull questions together and pose them to our panel. The speakers will also have time for dialogue, as you see, and then there will be a moment for a final thank you. If you find that some of the slides pass by too quickly, don't worry. You will be able to check the recording afterwards. The St. Basil's website will tell you where to find it. Now let us pause for an opening prayer on water. It was written by Virginia Fifield. She is a Sister of Mercy from Upper New York State near Cornwall. Creator, we turn our attention to acknowledge and give thanks for your gift of water. The mighty seas, the calm lakes, the rivers, the streams, and the rain that falls to refresh our sister, Mother Earth. At the beginning of creation, you sanctified the waters. Your gift is indispensable to all life on earth. It grows our food. It sustains all living things physically. When we are in need of spiritual strength, you instruct us to go down to the water and wash our spirits clean. Awaken the heart of those who exploit your gift for profit, and forgive those of us who take your gift for granted. Help us to remember the preciousness of your gift, and give us the wisdom to use your gift wisely and to share it equitably. Aho. Finally, here's another signpost from the encyclical. The majority of people living on our planet profess to be believers, says Pope Francis. This should spur religions to dialogue among themselves for the sake of protecting nature, defending the poor, and building networks of respect and fraternity. So my co-planners and I fervently hope that this evening adds to bonds of friendship and networks of respect and fraternity, as well as helping us to care better for the water in our common home. So now I will turn to our first speaker, Tangam Parameshwaran, who is a retired physicist. Jobs as scientists brought her and her husband to Ottawa in the mid-1970s. Since then, Tangam and her family have been involved in devotional music activities at the Hindu Temple of Ottawa. Some of her, and with the South India Cultural Association. Some of her sacred song compositions are available on CDs and YouTube postings. Now, Tangam had a bad cold earlier this week. If her voice gives out, then her husband, Sivan, is there ready to take over from her script. Sivan shares her interests and indeed is himself a member of the Capital Region Interfaith Council. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce you, and over to you, Tangam, and Kevin with the slides.
First of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be part of this World Water Day celebration. And water, of course, doesn't need any introduction, but still, my first slide begins with some pictures of beautiful pictures of water. There's a little drop of water on the left, the majestic Niagara Falls, and another beautiful Jog Falls from Karnataka, India. Next slide, please. So water affects and sustains nearly every aspect of life on Earth, from tiny bacteria to vegetation to giant blue whales. It's present on Earth as liquid, solid, which is as ice or snow, and also as water vapor. We all know that it cycles from the air to the land, to the sea, and back again. It covers 70% of the Earth's surface. And 60% of our body is composed of water. And if water were not here, none of us would be here either. Next slide, please. And it is a universal solvent. We know that. Dissolves pretty much everything. And it's a cleanser. It promotes chemical reactions which sustain life and maintain good health. Good hydration maintains body temperature, flow of oxygen to cells, removal of waste, and the list goes on. A molecule of water has 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Somebody skipped a slide. Yeah.
Go back, please.
I think you'll go down now. No, you're going back.
That's
Next one. Something got lost. Okay, I can take it from here. So Hindu faith stresses the need for living in harmony with nature and the environment. Almost all the elements in nature are part of worship. Water and sun, given prime importance, they are included in daily worship. They are both considered sacred because of, and water is considered sacred because of its purifying and cleansing qualities. Next slide, please. So hydrology is the study of the movement and availability and quality of water. Ancient Hindus had the concept of hydrology, nature of water, and the source of rain. Methods of water purification are mentioned by Varahamihira as early as 550 AD. Next slide, please. And the slide has to come down a little bit. So here we talk about the literature, scriptures and literature. So Vedas, they represent the primary literature on Hindu script, on Hindu methods of worship. There are 4 Vedas: Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharvana, and there is followed by Upanishad. It mostly derives from the Vedas themselves. The Rig Veda, the original first one, has the famous Nadi Sukta. It means river hymns. So the sages regarded in early days that rivers as life of bestowing, life nurturing, life protecting. And Rig Veda praises the rivers Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Sutudri, Parishni, Asikini, Marubriditara, and Vitasta, which is also called Jila. Next one. Next slide, please. Oh, see, you're going back a little bit to Upanishad, the Brihadaranya, the Brihadaranya Upanishad, it says, which was written long time ago, it says there was only water in the beginning, showing that the people who lived and understood life did originate from water in itself. And Atharvana Veda, it says water should be free from defilement because we cannot live with the water. And rivers wash away harmful matter, should be kept clean and unpolluted. Rivers were respected because they are the source of water which sustains life. Next slide, please. Now we're going to Hindu worship. Hindu worship involves welcoming God as a deity and offering what we can to express our gratitude for all the blessings of life. And probably the most well-known holy book of Hindus is the Bhagavad Gita. So in this book, there's one verse where Lord Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prechati tadaham bhaktya upaharikam sanami pretatmanaha. It means whoever offers a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water with devotion, I accept that as it is offered with a loving heart. The I here refers to Lord Krishna, which is one form of God. Water is considered sacred, but man does not pray to water, the physical entity, but to the source of life and spirituality within water. In coming to rituals, water is used to wash the images of God before worship begins. The priest offers blessed water to the devotees. Drops of water received in the palm of the hand are sanctified by the recitation or chanting of mantras, which are sacred verses, and then sprinkled around the food. At the end of a puja or worship, a Vedic chant called Mantra Pushpam, which means flower of Vedic chant is recited. The whole verse there are 7 verses, but I'll chant only one of them now. It goes as follows. Om Yopam Pushpam Veda Pushpavan Prajavan Pasuman Bhavati Chandrama Va Apam Pushpam Pushpavan Prajavan Pasuman Bhavati Yayevam Veda Yopam Ayatanam Veda Ayatanaman Bhavati. The meaning is, he who understands the water and its relation, the importance of water and its relation to the sun, moon, stars, and other elements of nature, is bound to have prosperous and fulfilling life. The use of water in daily life as well as a ritualistic ceremony is referred to as spiritual sacrifice, a process of attaining eternity, freedom from life and death. Now, some of the rituals performed in the average person does is Sandhya Vandana. This is a daily ritual. It's a combination of meditation and concentration. It consists of a chanting of mantras at dawn, noon, and dusk for purification and self-improvement. Achamana means sipping of water with the recitation of mantras. Pouring of a small amount of water is a salient feature of many Hindu rituals. During the milestones in human life, also known as samskara, such as birth, wedding, and death. During a worship or puja, the waters of the holy rivers are invoked into the container called kalasa. If you can move the slide down to the right a little, you can see the kalasa.
The pictures of the kalasa on the right.
The pictures of the kalasa on the right, but they're kind of hidden.
That's okay.
I'm seeing only half of it. On the top, we have a stylishly decorated kalasa, which is a pot of water, and with decorate with the coconut and other things. Unfortunately, you cannot see the whole picture in here. Next slide, please.
Tangam, can we finish up within a minute, please, so that we can?
Done, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Here there is a individuals performing special prayer, and the side right we have people performing similar prayer collectively. This is on a special day, like a new moon day, and to pray for to respect and pray for the forefathers and ancestors. Next slide, please. So here we have several pictures of people taking a dip in holy rivers, particularly in the river Ganga, which is considered very pure because it gives physical and mental health benefits. And you also believe it guarantees freedom from cycle of life and birth. Next slide, please. Oh, here there's another picture of a lot of people gathering on a special event to take a dip in the water, in the Ganga river. Next slide, please. A little bit about the hydrology. Ancient Hindus knew about how to collect water and store them. So the step wells are given here, and there are 2 pictures of them are shown in here. Next one. And here we have what is called we have a temple water tank. Temple uses a lot of water, and so this is a beautiful temple tank from a special temple called Meenakshi Temple in South India. It's got several towers and worthwhile visiting. Next slide. And this is another tank, which is the center of Vijayanagara Temple in South India. This is also very beautiful. It shows that they knew about step wells. Next slide, please. I was planning to conclude with the music, and the music has already started. This is a special song because it tells this is from a TV series, but it tells us to that we should protect the waters. The English translation is given here. It says, don't waste the water, don't turn the earth into a barren land. Guard the ocean, the lake, the river, and even the pictures that you carry to transport the water. Don't be foolish and perish tomorrow. And guard the drops of water as well as you guard the clean air, because both are very important. They help us stay alive and also thrive. And so don't burn and destroy the water.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tangam. As I said before, people will be able to go back to the recordings to see what had to be finished prematurely. But we do have to continue on to our next presenter. So I apologize for cutting you off there, but I think you were very close to the end. Our next presenter is Lalith Ananda Gunaratne, speaking from the Buddhist viewpoint. Lalith is an entrepreneur who moved to Canada in 2011 from Sri Lanka, where he had co-established a pioneering solar energy business in the 1980s. He studied mechanical engineering in Canada and management in the UK. Lalith does training in mindfulness-based leadership and writes and speaks on social political issues, development, renewable energy, ethical and sustainable business, and spirituality. Lalith, over to you. Your slides are now appearing and you'll be advancing your slides yourself. Thank you. Please use the next 7 minutes for your...
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. And it's a pleasure to be here. I grew up in an idyllic village called Kandy in the hills of Sri Lanka, in a very multicultural, multi-faith, multi-religious community. And I've been strongly influenced by all the different religions of Hinduism, Islam, and especially Catholicism too, because I was in a very Catholic neighborhood and growing up in a Buddhist home. I went to a Silvestro Benedictine school, so all that has influenced my life. But my formal inquiry and the way I live has been following the Buddhist principles, and I'm going to now share some of those principles in relation to water. And essentially, a basic tenet of Buddhism happens to be the principle of karma. Karma is the fact that we are interconnected in this universe with nature, and there's a cause and effect. There's what's called a codependent arising. So that alone tells us that we are one with this earth, one with this water, one with earth, one with fire, one with air. So having said that, having put that in perspective, let me just move on. So in terms of Buddhist path to enlightenment, includes a diligent cleansing of the body, mind, and spirit. Buddhism embodies a calmness and a serenity of water by practicing water offerings at the Buddhist shrines. And I'll tell you why that calmness is important to the Buddhist principles. So Buddhism has 3 characteristics of existence that is there. So one is dukkha, the fact that there's unease, there's suffering, there's unsatisfactoriness in life. The other one is anicca, which says that life is impermanent and uncertain. Anatta is a bit more difficult to imagine because it says there's no lasting essence. In effect, it states that there's no self. And the fact that the physical body rises and falls. So that in itself shows that there's really no material body that remains as permanent. So we are then subject to delusion about these characteristics. We hang on to a material world as a result of that delusion. So it ends up in suffering when we are deluded and attached to the material world. So Buddha invited us to look at the 4 noble truths which led to the Noble Eightfold Pathway, which I will take a quick look at in the next few minutes. So the first noble truth talked about essentially introduced the truth of suffering, that suffering exists. And the second noble truth is the truth of a cause of suffering. And then if there's suffering, we can end it with a willful intention of practice. And the path to end it is there in the Noble Eightfold Pathway. So the Noble Eightfold Pathway is here: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, livelihood, right effort, right concentration, and mindfulness. So the mindfulness and the concentration are an essential, integral part of the Buddhist practice. So by quietening the mind, we're able to see and inquire into how the mind works and how life works and the nature of life exists. And so in terms of the concentration and meditation, the meditating under the Bodhi tree lets his thoughts and feelings flow through him, just like water flowing, yet he sat still just like still water. So this contradiction, this paradox of the flowing water, but there's also stillness that's there. That is that combination that we really look at in Buddhist terms. So in terms of the practice itself, I'm sorry about my throat. So the good, the bad, the pleasure and the pain, success and failure, birth and death will keep flowing through us. And that's the nature of life. And the flow is spiritually essential to help the karma flow through us so everything may have good outcome at the end. Yet we can be inwardly still and realize that we don't have to be moved by this flow of karma. We can stop that flow by sitting still and stopping the thoughts in a meditation. And the other part of the Dharma is that when we are loving, kind, and compassionate, it helps us to stop the karmic flow and then find equanimity in this roller coaster of life. And that happens through that meditation practice that I talked about. And I invite you now to close your eyes for a moment and focus on your breath. So what you're doing right now is to stop the flow of this karma by gaining some space. So by stopping the thought process, by going to a place of awareness and space. So you shut out the past and you shut out thinking about the future to become present to the here and now. So we are now finding that stillness in the flow that is normally there. And as you have stilled your mind, quieted your mind, and found that space, found that calm, found that stillness, I invite you to bring your hands and close your ears and put your thumb into the ear to stop your auditory sense. And then as you are sitting there with that calm mindfulness, you're still hearing the flow of your body, the flow of the blood through the veins. So the body is still moving and flowing amidst that calm stillness that you have in your mind. So that gives you a visceral experience of how you can then experience the stillness and the flow at the same time. And then I invite you to now let go of your hands and just stay there for a moment with that mindful awareness, being present to the here and now. And it is through that space that we gain the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths, of the suffering, of the impermanence, and the non-self. So I invite you now to open your eyes and try to stay within that space of that meditative awareness through the rest of the session if you can. So I end with a very short saying that, have you ever seen still water? Have you ever seen flowing water? If your mind is peaceful, it will be just like still flowing water. It's almost as if it was still, yet it's flowing. So we call it still flowing water. And in that process of acknowledging the stillness and the flow, wisdom can arise. So thank you very much for your patient hearing.
And thank you, Lalit. It was very lovely and a welcome, unexpected experience in the midst of this hectic attempt to put so many things together in a short period of time. Thank you, Lalit. Our next speaker is Tom McCauley. Tom worked as a water resources engineer. His main focus was Canada-USA international relations about water. Later, he studied philosophy and theology. His doctoral research was on water ethics in relation to the Canadian theologian Bernard Lonergan. Tom is a part-time theology faculty member at St. Paul University, and he helped to organize this evening's program. So thank you. Tom, over to you.
Just unmuted. Thank you very much, Bob. And Kevin, can we have the slides, please? I'm really happy to be able to participate, to be asked to participate as a presenter. And I think it's so important that we have these events where there is a respectful listening and learning from all different faiths. And I myself am a Roman Catholic, but I have participated quite a few times in Anglican, Lutheran, and Pentecostal worship services. And so I am trying my best to speak for the breadth of Christianity. Next slide, please. So if you look closely in the scriptures, you can begin to notice that the Bible is full of water, full of mentions of seas, rivers, streams, wells, and springs, hundreds of times. And starting at Genesis, the creation of the world, where the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, all the way through to the closing chapter of Revelation, where we hear of the river of the water of life, bright as a crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It's flowing through the city of God, and on either side of the river is the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Kevin.
I'm sorry, Tom, I only have 2 slides for you.
But I sent them all in.
If you proceed, I will search for them.
Well, okay, I can go on without them. And I will. So I could speak about a lot of the aspects of water, but I want to go right to the central part of water in Christianity. I mean, in Catholicism, I've been to Lourdes, and we speak of water as healing and healing springs. We convey blessings. The priest, and I like it when they do it with cedar branches of holy water, and everybody gets splashed in the congregation. But I'd like to speak about it's baptism itself that is the initial sacrament for all Christian denominations. And baptism occurs with water, which is a part of God's free gift, conveying the spiritual grace at the same time. The water is also symbolic of purification, of dying to self and rising into God's life. Water as well is centrally symbolic of God's grace, of God's self-giving, which heals and elevates. So one text which helps to elucidate our participation in the life of the Holy Spirit is in John 7, where Jesus, during the Feast of Booths, proclaimed, "Whoever believes in me, as the scripture says, out of his heart shall flow rivers of living water." Now, this is not just about receiving living waters, or with the imagery of a tree beside the river, gaining water, living waters from its roots, but it's about giving the living waters flowing from one's heart. And right now, as Father Daryl mentioned, we are in Lent, a 40-day period of preparation and fasting before Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And in the daily Mass readings, which I get every morning on a listserv, I've noticed at least 7 references to water and already. And one of these is on the next slide, which you cannot see. But it's from Isaiah chapter 58. And I'd like to say that this reminds us of the broader context of true fasting, of true worship. And the context of loving mercy, of doing justice, and walking humbly with your God, one of my favorite verses. But Isaiah 58 says, "Is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen, to loosen the chains of injustice, to break every yoke, to set the oppressed free, to share your bread with the hungry, to care for the poor and homeless? Then your light shall shine in the darkness. The Lord will guide you, and you will be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never run dry." So from this, I would conclude this text that it is compassionate action that sustains the flow, receiving God's life, God's grace in our lives, but giving. And this is very similar to Jesus' teaching about the end time judgment in Matthew 25, where the righteous are invited into the kingdom of God. Jesus says, "Come, beloved of my Father, for when I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink." And further on, "Whatever you did unto the least of these, my brethren, you did it unto me." So I wanted to close there and say that I know I haven't touched on the many aspects of water in ritual and during the Mass, but on the very central part of our lives, which is the spiritual life that we have of giving ourselves fully to God and letting his life be in us and move through our lives, water is the perfect symbol. So thank you very much.
And we thank you, Tom, for having skated so effectively across the situation of not seeing the slides come up that you had expected. Very heartfelt and very appreciated.
Okay,
Our
one
next
other thing. If we have a chance at the end, I do have engineering and water resources, global slides, but this was particularly important to get the central part of Catholic Christian spirituality.
That's fine. And what we can do then is before the recording finishes, we can add those slides with Kevin, allowing you to share your screen. And that way they will be part of the recording that can be looked at by people afterwards. I'd like to turn now to Imam Zayed Delic. Zayed was born and raised in Bosnia-Herzegovina. He studied philosophy there, and he did Islamic and Arabic studies in Pakistan. He immigrated to Canada in 1995 with his wife and child due to the Balkans War. The Imam has a doctorate in education from Simon Fraser University and is continuing to pursue other doctoral studies now in Ottawa. He has served as an Imam in Croatia, Bosnia, Richmond, BC, and now in Ottawa. Thank you very much, Imam, for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Robert. Much appreciated. As you have heard, I originally come from Bosnia, and my first learning about social responsibility started actually in my native land with my family, my mother, who taught me about nature and water in particular. And then later on, it extended through understanding our textual references in relations to nature, environmental responsibilities, and particularly water. What I would like to share today with you is some points related to importance of water and preservation of water and sharing of water, not just as a social responsibility, but rather as a religious responsibility as well. First of all, in Islam, one of the most important substances on earth has been qualified by the Quran as being water. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And God Almighty says, we have made every living thing out of water. So basically, God Almighty declares water as the basis and origin of life itself. And beyond that, God Almighty says, we sent rain down from the skies with the purpose of reviving the life on earth, making it alive. وَمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِنْ مَاءٍ وَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضِ. أحيا meaning giving life to it, reviving it. Second point is that water has been described in the Quran in our primary texts as Mubarak, or a blessing, or a gift from the skies that support and the sustenance on earth. When God Almighty says in the Quran, وَنَزَّلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً مُبَارَكًا. Mubarakan is a blessing, a gift, grace that comes directly from God. Rizqan lil ibad. It's a provision, sustenance for servants or people of God. It is indeed a life-giving substance. Thirdly, water in Islam has been described as well as a sign of greatness of God for people who do have intelligence. Ayah liqawmi ya'qilun. It's a sign for people who use their intellect, who use their lub, as Quran says. Fourthly, it is a substance that purifies body and soul. So we clean ourselves with water, but at the same time, we as believers, as Muslims, when we clean ourselves, we do a precondition for getting into spiritual activities, into the prayer, for example. And God Almighty, as He says, "Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabin wa yuhibbu al-mutatahhirin." God Almighty loves people who clean themselves physically and who clean themselves spiritually. So, basis for our spiritual purity is water, as we could notice as well. As such, it is a Muslim social and religious duty to take care of this vital resource by ensuring continuation of fundamental functions of life on earth. Any water misuse in Islam amounts to earth contamination because it will upset the balance ecological system which sustains life. Thus, Islam calls for protection for all earth elements that keep the life's balance. This blessing, therefore, must be used with a gratitude and be with discretion. That's the reason why God Almighty actually tests us and challenges us. Do not waste. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Do not waste. Do not destroy for no reason, for no purpose. Thus, Islam encourages preservation or sharing of the water. Sharing water with people is regarded and considered in Islam as sadaqatun jariyah. This concept is very much essential in our faith. Sadaqatun jariyah means permanent charity. So sharing water, example, we were taught back in Bosnia that when you have a water, you cannot reserve it just for yourself. You must share it with other people as a Muslim. Sadaqatun jariyah means permanent charity. When you share water with other people, example, if you build wells, and as long as people use those wells, you would get reward from God Almighty. It's a permanent charity that works for us, even when we end our life, even when we have gone from this world. Giving water earns us God's gratitude, His mercy and forgiveness. There is a very interesting story of a man, a sinner, who once noticed a dog by the well, but dog hasn't been able to reach down to the water. So he took his shoe, went down and quenched the thirst of the dog. فَسَقَى الْكَلْبُ, as Prophet peace be upon him said, فَشَكَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُ فَغَفَرَ لَهُ. God Almighty thanked him. God Almighty thanked him, فَغَفَرَ لَهُ, and forgave him. Yes, in every creature, for every creature, God Almighty certainly would, as this tradition suggests, for every creature, even when we give them water, when we give them food, when we feed them, God Almighty would reward us with thanks and forgiveness. Prophet peace be upon him also suggested when he was asked which charity is the best, what is the best charity that we can do in our lives? He said, providing water, saqyul ma, provide water to the people. That is why Prophet peace be upon him encouraged Muslims to do water wells on behalf of our dear ones when they pass on. That was very clearly indicated in many of the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In a nutshell, water is an essential element of every living thing. It is a blessing and a gift of God, a sign of intelligence, people, and understanding of this sign, a blessing for grateful people, a source of purification, physical as well as spiritual. Thus, its preservation and sharing with others is our social and religious duty in Islam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for that comprehensive view of water, and for those the anecdotes that you shared, which brought it very alive and very warmly expressed. Very much appreciated. We're happy now to welcome Rabbi Daniel Mickelberg, who grew up in Vancouver, where he was active in the Reform movement in Judaism. After ordination in May 2008, he served as assistant and then associate rabbi in congregations in Vancouver and Toronto. Now he is the senior rabbi of Ottawa's Temple Israel. In July 2021, Rabbi Mickelberg was appointed the chair of the Reform Rabbis of Canada. We're pleased to have you here with us, Rabbi Daniel Mickelberg. Over to you.
Thank you. It's great to be here and great to see that we're among so many different screens and to almost look into your eyes and to really celebrate water and the importance that it plays for each of our traditions. I'm going to look to Torah, which is our sacred text in Judaism. Judaism holds up water as a symbol of both strength, but also struggle. We look to water as being transformative, also dangerous, purifying, but potentially tainted, refreshing, also overwhelming. Our traditional texts emphasize our dependence on H2O, and we attribute gratitude to God for its presence. We're taught to care for and to respect water. And so the figures that I'd like to focus on today are Noah, Moses, and Miriam, because each of them have core encounters in their biblical stories with water, and they teach us to appreciate its power and to channel our reverence. I'll speak briefly about each. As we've already heard, the opening words of Genesis speak in general terms to the importance of nurturing the land, of witnessing its power, of never taking it for granted. And the rivers of the Garden of Eden, they are attributed as a majestic place, a precious source. An early figure with a key encounter with water is the biblical Noah. He's referred to as a righteous man in his time. He is instructed to build an ark. It shelters him and his family, as well as a sampling of the animals. But once complete, we witness that water can be a destructive force, annihilating the people of the land, punishing them for their wicked ways. But then the waters ease, and Noah and his family, alongside the creatures, they begin anew. And so we're faced with a juxtaposition. Water can serve as threat. Water can also serve as source of renewal. Yes, and yes, at the same time. We jump then to the book of Exodus. We are introduced to Moses and to his remarkable sister Miriam, who will be intimately tied to water in their lifetimes. In the waters of the Nile, Moses survives as an infant, as Miriam sends him off to be adopted by the Pharaoh. Later on, the Israelites stand on the shore of the Sea of Reeds. Behind them, the Egyptians are in pursuit, ready to fetch the Israelites back to make them slaves again. Just as scary, in front is a giant body of water blocking the dreams of tomorrow. The sea serves as a wall. It's representative of fears, but also potentially hopes. To cross over is terrifying. It holds such promise. Stepping into the sea, it miraculously splits in two, and the Israelites cross with song and dance. They are transformed from a people once enslaved to a free nation. And we witness water as our partner, a source to work alongside, not against. And again, we witness water as a means to start fresh. One more vignette. Miriam is associated with a mysterious well. Everywhere the Israelites went, they could trust that Miriam's well would be alongside. But then Miriam passed on, and the people found themselves thirsty. Looking to Miriam's well, we witness waters as life, sustenance, even love. We take note that even as it is seemingly abundant, it can one day disappear. And to crave water is to yearn for the basic foundational elements of survival. I could tell many more water tales, but I'm going to pause there. But let me jump to modern times. Building on these key narratives, Judaism continues to hold the importance of water high. For example, we're taught to wash our hands with blessing before meals, and in doing so, we appreciate water's worth. We have a friend here saying hello.
Unmute.
Sorry, you have to love those natural Zoom moments, right? In Judaism, we're taught to wash our hands with blessings before meals, and in doing so, we appreciate water's worth, even associating holiness, both with the act of cleansing and the act of eating. And at our New Year's season, we make a journey to an open body of water, and we cast out breadcrumbs into the river. Ritually, we use this opportunity to send off our transgressions, to begin the new year clean. And though significantly we don't know the end destination of the breadcrumbs, we accept the mystery. And finally, water is central to the practice of mikveh. A mikveh is an ancient ritual of water immersion used for cleansing, purifying, and transforming. We visit the mikveh at key life cycle events, and especially conversion, to mark what was and to celebrate what is. And to emerge from the waters is a rebirth of sorts. And so in closing, Judaism teaches that water is intended to be inspiring, cleansing, and full of promise. We're taught to use caution. Water can turn from friend to foe. Looking especially to the crossing of the sea with the Israelites as our teachers, we can use water to transform. We can rise up, we can begin anew. But first we need to open our eyes wide, we need to accept responsibility, and we take a step.
Well, thank you very much, Rabbi, and please convey our thanks to your assistant. It was a lovely summary. Our final speaker now, we're a little bit behind in time, but that's we still have plenty of time before our 90 minutes. We would like now to have Donna Naughton speaking to us. Donna is an Ojibwe and Cree woman from the Bigtigong First Nation in Northern Ontario on the shores of Lake Superior. With a master's degree in social work, Donna has been helping Indigenous communities for almost 30 years. In 2016, she became the executive director of Kateri Native Ministry, which was founded by her late brother, John. Like John, Donna shares her gift for music in her ministry. Thank you for joining us, Donna.
Thank you, Bob. I hope that you can hear me okay. Yeah, okay, great. I am so grateful to be able to hear everyone this evening. And it seems like we all speak the same language when we're talking about water. So my Indigenous ancestry is on both sides, both my mom and my mom and my dad. And my mother, my mother's people they used the waterways as their highways. So there was no such thing as cars and planes. And, you know, they had little planes, I guess, back then. I don't know. But, you know, they navigated those, the waterways because they had to eat, plain and simple. They needed to eat, they needed to trap, they needed to, you know, exchange for food, and they had to feed their communities and all of that. So I come from a long, rich history of people who understood water. In modern day, that I've learned from elders, water is like, and I've heard it tonight, water is life. It is the essence of life. I so love that. And and also it's in the Quran. I never would have thought that, you know, that water would be so important to other nations as it is to us. So our water as women, we are celebrate that water that we are able to give life. And when we birth our children, the first thing that comes is the water. So the water has a sacredness to it. It's always, we cannot live without it. I don't know how else to explain it. If it was not for water, and I mean the spirituality of the water, like water is alive. It's not an essence that just is there, you know, inanimate. It's very real and very alive. And as one person said earlier, one presenter said that we have the responsibility, and that's really what it is. It's a responsibility to look after the earth. Our job in looking after our common home is to be mindful of the water, because what happens is water can be still and it can be flowing, but it also can be rushing. And those rushing waters can do damage. And we want to always be mindful of the balance that we need to keep. And the water teaches us that, you know, to keep ourselves in balance. And I think I've heard that several times tonight as well. I would like to just take a minute to honor all the women who are watching this this Zoom tonight. And you're honored for the wisdom that you carry, for the incredible tenacity that women have, and their ability to be able to be flexible when in life. And I want to honor women as life givers, because none of us would be here if it were not for women. I'm also Catholic, but you know, I think we've heard a lot of that tonight, and there isn't much I can say more about that other than the same beauty of baptism and renewal is the same beauty that we do in our fasting camps when we go without water and food for 4 days. It helps us to reflect how much we need to take care of ourselves, but to take care of the earth. So I wish I could sing, but I'm just getting over COVID, so I don't have much of a voice to sing, Bob. I'm sorry. Excuse me. May I just end with a prayer? Mayakwe Dishnakas, Makwa Dodam, Anishinaabe Kwayandao, Big Tagang Anishinaabe First Nation Donjaba, Ottawa Dojui, Miigwech Gijannedo, Kenegeko Amishang. Miigwech for all of the presenters this evening that want to bring awareness of the importantness and the sacredness of water. Thank you for helping us to grow in our wisdom about how to look after her. Thank you for the actions that people take and are taking. Thank you for helping us to understand Laudato Si a little bit more. Thank you for the common language that we hear between everyone, no matter which nation you come from. And miigwech for Bob and Kathy, and for Father Daryl, and for all those who planned this evening. I am quite honored. Thank you. Thank you. Miigwech. Amen.
Well, that was very, very moving. Thank you.
There should be some questions that people want to ask. I mean, I'll try to answer as much as I can. But
thank you. Well, this next portion will be supervised by Kevin, who will look in the chat area and pull together the questions that have been posed. And so I hope the six of our speakers, yourself, and going back in reverse order, Rabbi Daniel, Imam Zaid, Tom, Dr. Tangam, Dr. Lalith, and then Dr. Tangam, that all six of you are available to answer questions if they're posed directly to you, but then also that we could end with a little bit of a conversational exchange. That would take us up till about 8:25, and then we have a special thank you to round out our evening. So I've been prattling along here a little bit to give Kevin a bit of time, and then Kevin, can you now start relaying the questions that you would like our panelists to consider?
Yes, I certainly can. Thank you, Bob. The first one is to Donna, in fact, and it is a very precise question to Donna, and it's come up a number of ways. Let's make it in two parts. So the first question I ask is for Donna. The next question is going to be for the panel, but let's start with Donna. People are latching on to women as water keepers. And so I want to put two things together. Can you, Donna, please say a little bit more about women as water keepers? And can you say a little bit more also, in a sense, the other side of that question, of the issue that water can be destructive as well as a blessing?
Donna, are you prepared to make some comments on those questions?
She's muted.
Okay, Donna, unmute yourself and then please.
okay, I got it. Yeah, the second question is quite easy to answer. As in all things on earth, everything needs to be in balance, and so the water, will go through like a cycle as well, because it needs to come back to being balanced. And sometimes those, as our world is so crazy now with climate change and all of this, you're seeing more and more of its destructive force. And, I used to think how awful it is to have water, but you know what? It's like maybe there needs to be a time of cleansing, when we see that and we realized, oh my goodness, look what's happening in the world. Look, we have to change. We have to change so these things, our waters become healthy again, And in terms of water keepers, I'm just going to tell you a little story about. There's a water keeper, and her name was Mandalmin, and she was from Witwimakong. And what she did was she walked around all the Great Lakes to bring awareness to the condition of our water. And she was a mentor for a young girl called Autumn Peltier. And Autumn Peltier is also like almost like a mentor for young people. She holds a special place because of her stand with water. And being a water keeper or a water keeper is like women have the responsibility to take care of the water. That's our responsibility. And we're also connected to the moon. And earlier this evening, we heard that there's it's not that we pray to the moon, or it's not that we pray to the water, right? What we're doing is we're praying for that life force within the water, that life force within the moon. And we as women are connected that way, see? Creator made us connected that way as women. So that's why we call women are called water keepers. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you, Donna. So this is a question to now all our panelists, and whenever you want to pitch in, please do. Please unmute yourselves. If you all our panelists unmute themselves now, it'll be easier to go a bit of back and forth on this question. Is there something in the powerful language and the imagery and the beliefs that we've heard about this evening in these presentations that is missing from the wider world? And how do we close up the gap between the two?
I think that when Rabbi Mickelberg spoke about water as destructive and the other side of water, we are so interdependent in the whole planet, and the water cycle, which connects ice, oceans, continents, which affects people and every part of creation. The water cycle itself is being disrupted by climate change, and we've seen CO2, the level climb up to now 421 parts per million, where it used to be 280 in pre-industrial. But the report I read last week, which just confirms what I've been reading for 10 years now, is that the water demand by 2030 will outstrip the water available to people by 40%. This is part of the water crisis, which is a threefold crisis, including not only polluted waters and saline groundwater, but climate change itself, which is causing an exacerbated water cycle where we have extreme droughts. And as you've seen, if you follow the news, the fires in California, in British Columbia, the whole town burned down at 49.6 degrees. Australia with the fires, and 500 million or more koalas and other animals killed. Extreme floods, because every degree that the atmosphere gains, you can add 7% more water to it. And so if you add 10 degrees, there's like 70% more water. Those rivers of water, they call them atmospheric rivers, that have been hitting California and have hit British Columbia in the past. But the melting glaciers and Greenland, now this is one threat that we can't really stop. It's like once the glaciers are melting, and both in Greenland and in West Antarctica, we're talking about 1.5 meters of sea level rise by the end of this century, which means trillions of dollars of destruction for all the ports of the major cities around the world, all the major cities, but the low-lying countries, which affect, I forget how many millions of people, but it's at least 30 to 100 million people.
So thank you, Tom. So I take that to mean that what if we were clearer with statistics, if we were clearer with analysis, this might also help. Let's hear from some of our other speakers on this same issue about trying to narrow the gap between the kinds of language and the imagery that we've heard and the kind of perception in the world out there, and how we might bring those two things a little closer together. Who's going to speak next on that?
I could say a few words. That, what comes to mind to me is the dichotomy between scarcity and abundance. And in North America, and at least in most regions in North America, I would say we take water for granted, and that we don't typically have water shortages. We could use as much water at our liberty, and I would even say we forget that water is life, that water is sacred, that water is a precious source. For those of us who have lived in various regions of the world, we recognize that that's not true everywhere. So first of all, it's not true here either. That's important for us to recognize that water is certainly not an unlimited availability to us, and at various stages in our life stories and stories of our nation, we've had struggles with water. But wars have also been fought over water, and particularly as we look to the Middle East, as we look to Africa, we witness regions that are incredible desperation because they don't have access to water in the same way that we do today. And conversely, therefore, appreciate water's worth in ways that we really aspire to. As I hear all of our words of love, I think we can do a much better job at opening our eyes and sharing at large the precious nature of water, knowing that we ought never take it for granted, and to recognize that it is a gift.
Thank you, Rabbi. So Tangam, what's your response to that? No, Tangam, please.
Okay. Yeah, what I was going to say is the problem is water problem is doesn't stand by itself. It's all part of climate change, and it's all because of human lifestyle as well. So you have to look at the big picture. We have in modern life, we have a lot of conveniences and industrial conveniences, and that certainly make life better. But everything uses many more and more of natural resources, and many of these methods are polluting as well. So we are coming up with starting with carbon footprint. It's connected to that as well. So they all sort of hanging together. So people in general have to change their lifestyle to some extent, whether it's transportation or food production. When things are done massive scale, it's convenient, but then it does cause pollution, and pollution affects water. So in a way, it's all tied together. So we have taken everything all together. It is not, water doesn't stand alone in this. That's all I'm saying to say. Recently, I gave another presentation about carbon footprint and the energy demand. It all goes back to energy demand as well. So government and industries, they have to work together. And of course, we, the average individuals, have to participate as well by changing some of the methods by which we live in, the products that we buy, use less plastic, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Lalit, do you have a comment on this? Because I want to move on to another question, if not.
Yes, I think the huge blind spot we have is coming from us as individuals, especially the urban people around the world who are stuck on the left side of the brain in our busy lives, who have really no time to even think about the climate, think about water, think about nature, think about our oneness with nature. So we stay stuck there and not able to get to the right part of the brain, which enables us to put things in a better perspective, to see things as they are. So I just want to just bring that up in terms of our personal responsibility. But how about us putting a mirror on ourselves and gaining that space to think about all this in a way where we can do something about it at a very personal level too.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question. I'm going to ask that if you didn't speak on the question that we just dealt with, this is the one that you'll be answering. So this is a political question, I guess. It's about power. How can the shared spiritual understandings that we hear tonight have a practical impact on those people who have the power to improve protection, conservation, and sharing? And I should have stressed that word. Have an impact on those people who have the power to improve protection, conservation, and sharing. So
can I just, okay, Tangam has put her hand up, yes.
Since nobody was coming up, I thought I'll talk a little bit about it. See, again, one thing we didn't mention in this earlier talk, it is the usage of everything, natural resources. we have to look at the per capita use. Most of this usage is coming from North America. Now, of course, all the other countries are catching up as well. Again, because of the conveniences of life. So people, we all enjoy them. We like them, but everything costs, and that's the cost, the climate change. And who has the power? Then, of course, governments have the power, but people have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit and come forward, express their opinions, and maybe, and industries have to take some special steps. And they are doing, especially coming to plastics, most of the waters are polluted with plastics. So they are taking steps, and some of the usage in plastics cut back. So these steps eventually, maybe not my lifetime, maybe 25 years from now, things may change. So there's still hope, I guess, to bring down the temperature rise as well.
And I would say also that if you're looking at political structures and power, we have to follow the money. And when you follow the money, you realize the corporate influence of governments in terms of the limited liability corporations' ability to act as a person to influence governments. And we see that very clearly. So it's not the politicians alone, it's corporate, it's media, it's all who's created the material world, who's on that mission for profit, that then ignores a natural world. It's separate. Natural world does not even come into the picture in the business of profit. So that's one of the areas that we have to certainly look at and address if you talk about political structures and power and resources.
I would like to, if I may add a word. You talked about the powers to be who can control the water and the environment and all that. Now, nobody talked about the war. You stop the wars, then considerable amount of problems can be solved. Okay, say an example is that one fighter aircraft taking off, it's equal to 10,000 cars moving on an ordinary day or something like that. Nobody talks about that. Why can't we stop sending missiles at each other? Stop the wars, understand others, appreciate others. So that is the basis of the whole thing. Appreciate the other human beings as you are, as you appreciate yourself. So that's a basis of that nobody talks about. And as you pointed out, the corporation, they have a lot to play in this, and they are oriented towards profit, and there's no reason for that, I think.
Yeah. You just heard about the bank collapse as well. That's another reflection of how money works, how people use money.
Okay, I want to squeeze in two more questions and then we'll do a wrap. So can you have a quick go around on this one? And this introduces the concept of sin. It is, after all, a gathering about spirituality. I guess we should talk about that. The question is this: most religious traditions have some concept of sin, and the average follower probably does not realize that the mistreating of water is in itself sinful, because they've never been told this by their religious authorities. The question is, what's your reaction to that?
You are asking about what a sin is, right? A sin is something harmful that you do to your fellow being. And that on extension, sin is a thing that you do to harm the environment and the earth that you live in. So that is the biggest sin that we can. So respect nature, respect the Mother Earth, and respect other individuals.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom, let me go to you then about sin. Tom, where are you on that?
Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
Well, okay. It's a very complex question, because if you actually preached about sin against water in a parish, in a church, you probably would not get very far, because everybody would think, well, we're doing fine, we're good with water and we don't hurt it. But sin is complex because it's structural, and it's complex because we're also involved in all of these biases. Biases that actually keep us from expanding our horizons of knowledge and concern to know about what's threatening the world, what's the eco crisis and the water crises. And there's structural sin, of course, in the governments and corporations, which might speak the good talk, greenwashing sometimes, but not walk the walk. And so it's a very complex question, but it has to be teased out, and we have to follow the traces of where this is going, and where it's who is not responding as they should, from the bottom all the way through to the top of any of the kinds of spiritual and cultural and media influencers, because I see there's so many huge reports that break your heart, and yet somehow this is not getting through to the public. There is, in the media, there's a breakdown, or in education or somewhere it's not getting through. So,
okay, thank you. Donna, I know you want in on this, so you have the last word on this question?
Okay. So sin in the context of for Indigenous people, we were told that we were going to hell, right? If you did this, if you did that. And today I'm not sure if that has quite the same effect, as it did back in the day. So for when I look at something as beautiful as water and as life-giving as that, when you take the time to understand your own spiritual self, you give yourself the opportunity for us to have space for that, to transform, to look at our responsibility. And our responsibility is to look after the earth, to look after each other, to love God, to walk a good walk, minobamaton, and that is, taking care and living a good life. And part of it is looking after water, And, that first question is, there's so many divisions between religions, And I saw tonight that it would be possible to come together because we speak the same language about water. That would be a big possibility, that we could come together and be able to stand together in solidarity for water. That's what I think. And so I hope I answered that question properly. I don't want to get into any kind of conversation about the word sin. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to engage in that.
Oh, I think
But,
you've done that. So thank you, Donna. Now,
Yeah.
The final question that I'm not going to ask, but I will tell you about, because it's a great way to kind of wrap
Oh.
what we've just heard up, is this. The question is the event this evening a celebration of our differences, or is it a celebration of our similarities? The idea of, are we drawn by the things that connect us, or are we kind of recognizing the things, we have a bit of a different take on that? That would have been a go-round question. We're not going to get there, but we are going to get to Sister Jean Goulet, because I know Bob Choney needs to introduce her. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So Bob, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And if everybody else could mute yourselves, that might eliminate any other noises. We have Sister Jean now to thank our speakers, and I'll introduce her briefly. Sister Jean is a Sister of Holy Cross in her 67th year of religious life. So you can start doing some imaginative mathematics if you want. She's more than 67 years old. Sister Jean was born and raised just up the valley here in Renfrew, and studied at universities in Ottawa, Boston, and Toronto. Relevant to this session, her work experience includes heading the Office of Ecumenical and Interfaith Relations for the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. And Sister Jean helped to found Ottawa's vibrant and inspiring multi-faith housing initiative. To quote Jean, She believes that our core mission is this: to be open to the surprises of the Spirit and live our commitment each day with deep joy, abiding faith, fervent hope, generous love, and abundant courage. So, Sister Jean, over to you. Can you offer a few words of thanks?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation to thank these wonderful speakers this evening. It's been fascinating to hear you all. Listening to that last question, has this been a celebration of our diversity or of what we have in common? And I think we probably would agree we have an awful lot in common with regard to water and our appreciation for the gift of water. Water is a blessing. It's been an evening of listening and learning. I'm grateful that you have taped this program, because I will go back to some of the slides to read the beautiful poems and songs that have been put forth, and understandings of the different faith traditions. Can something come from this? I think it would be absolutely marvelous. Someone said that we need to do something about it. Do it personally, but maybe we could do something about it together. And Donna mentioned that too. That was her last comment. Can we come together on this? It reminds me of an interfaith prayer service that we had in our parish on January 1st of this year. In our tradition, in the Catholic tradition, that's the International Day of Prayer for Peace. So we had an interfaith prayer for peace, which was well attended, and people are still watching it on the website. Every now and then I check the numbers. And multi-faith housing is another example of people of different faith groups coming together for a common cause. We saw that housing was a need, and just from a small group of people, it has branched out now to quite a respectable organization providing housing, affordable housing for people in Ottawa. And because it's International Water Day too, I was thinking of our young sisters that lived with us last year, who are from Africa. Actually, they lived with us 4 years, 5 years for another, studying at the University of St. Paul and Ottawa U. They've returned to Africa. And Suzanne Tsuma, who's back in Mali, she was called the other day, and they're drilling for water because they want to build a school. Sister Catherine, who's gone back to Burkina Faso, they are also drilling for water. They're building a health center. That place is right near under the Sahel. So I hope they have a lot of luck in drilling for water there. So water connects us globally and locally. And then today I read from the Canadian Council for Canadians the number of Indigenous communities in Canada that still do not have potable water, that they've been a boil water mandate for years. To me in Canada, that's unconscionable. And what are we going to do about that? We've had these beautiful thoughts today, this evening, about water. Let's do something to make everyone in Canada, that they may have the ability to go to a tap as we do and have potable water. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sister Jean. That was a lovely ending for us. So now the last screen has names, phone numbers, and email addresses. So we'll leave that up for a while. And you can always get in touch via the St. Basil's Parish office. I would like to thank all the speakers. I'd like to thank Sister Jean, Father Darrell, Kevin, especially for handling things out the side and at the back and so forth. My co-planners, have been Pamela Dixon and Mary Whalen, along with Tom McCauley. And as I said earlier, check the St. Basil's website for news of the recording. And perhaps consider if you're in our area or even not in our area, let's see what we can do. But if you'd like to join this little water action group, then that would be one possibility. I don't know what our plans are for the next little while. Believe me, just getting to this thing and dealing with this was, enough of a challenge for us just for the moment. And if you have suggestions for what you'd like to see happen in this same kind of mode, perhaps something similar for a year from now, World Water Day will always be on March 22nd, and perhaps we would gather again. So now I'm going to say thank you, and we're ending the main portion of the evening. And thank you again, all who attended, and in the future, those who take interest in the recording, for engaging in this discussion of the meaning of water in our different spiritualities, and in aid of caring more carefully for water within our common home.